From the land of frozen lakes, this is 10,000 Takes, brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Twin Cities sports scene. And Wally, normally we're on the radio, but we're back on television. Another episode. Happy MLK Day.
Happy MLK Day to you as well.
You're working on the holiday.
No vacation for you and I.
No, we are back at it and plenty to get into. I mean, you've got your favorite weekend on the calendar year, Super Wild Card Weekend, which winds up tonight in Inglewood.
Yeah, I'll have more on that later in the show.
Yes. There was a lot of blowouts, and there was also some great theater.
Wow. More blowouts than great theater, which is typical for Wild Card Weekend. But again, I'm going to save that diatribe for later.
All right. And then, of course, we were at Target Center Sunday night. We walked into the venue expecting to see the greatest shooter in the history of hoops, Steph Curry. Sorry, Ray Allen. Sorry, Reggie Miller.
Right.
Sorry, Larry Bird. But it's Steph Curry, and he didn't play. Hand injury. Timberwolves thumped the Golden State Warriors, but that was a big downer. The air came out of the balloon with no Steph.
No Steph, no Draymond Green. They didn't even make the trip. They were both still in San Francisco. And it's unfortunate because, as you said, I think folks walked into the arena, and oh, by the way, they announced a sellout, which, what is the sellout number now? Like
17,100 plus.
Okay.
That's the new capacity at Target Center. The building has shrunk before our eyes.
It's amazing how that happened. It used to be 19,006, I believe. Now it's down to 17,000 and some, thanks to some big tarps that they put over some of the seats up in the upper level.
Yeah, you see that when the Lynx play. You see that when the Oakland A's play baseball out there at the Coliseum.
Well, the Twins used to have them over at the Metrodome for a while there towards the end of their run at Metrodome. And now you got it downtown Minneapolis at Target Center.
So the tarps just don't cover baseball diamonds. They also cover seats.
Yeah, tradition continues in downtown Minneapolis, covering up unused seats.
Ooh, and I sure hope the Minnesota Twins never have to put up any tarps at trendy Target Field. Because that's a small capacity as it is, 38K.
Yeah, you are correct. But the Wolves did play well on Sunday night. It's been kind of up and down for them, but they're right around 500. Right now, they'd be part of the playoff picture, which includes, they have this first round type of play-in tournament. But yeah, if you're a Timberwolves fan, you'll take anything at this juncture. But I'd say that they look good enough to be in that little play-in tournament now anyway.
Yeah, Malik Beasley was outstanding against Golden State. They did what they had to do against an undermanned Warriors team.
No question.
Oh, by the way, Klay Thompson is back, though, for Golden State. Good to see.
Yes.
The son of Gopher legend Michael Thompson, who played in the NBA with the LA Lakers. But, it's a victory they had to get. They were convincing. And even though Anthony Edwards was, had a subpar night, they were still able to find a way to get the win. And I think they probably will be in the playoff mix. For the last 10 to 15 years, the Western Conference of the NBA has been just loaded with great teams, ultra competitive. I think we've seen a bit of a drop-off now. And the Timberwolves, to me, even if they're right around 500, should punch a playoff ticket. Top 10 are in.
Top 10 are in. Right now, they've been wavering between 7 and 10 for the last couple of weeks. So, heck, if they are in that play-in tournament, that is a step forward for this franchise.
That's a parade here in Minnesota.
Yeah, get the confetti out. Wow. But you mentioned Malik Beasley, and he did play well. I'd like to point out another guy that comes off the bench that has played well, particularly when they've been down some players. Jalen Noel has really shown up and given head coach Chris Finch some minutes that I don't know if folks were really expecting, but he has really played well. And I think that he's important too. He had 18 points off the bench. Your guy Beasley had 17. So between those two guys, they really, helped Minnesota get over the top against Golden State. By the way, they were actually losing in that game in the third quarter. Yeah. And, they sprinted out to the big lead. They went on like a 31-3 run or some ridiculous thing and ended up winning the ball game going away.
And I feel like, because Chris Finch has been around now for roughly a calendar year.
Yep.
He took over midstream last season for Ryan Saunders. It was an odd decision by the T-Wolves. They passed up David Vanterpool. I didn't agree with it. But I will say this. Chris Finch came off the bench of Toronto, who at the time, were, one season away from having won a title. Right. Nick Nurse, the head coach. He's a basketball guy who's bounced around the NBA map. I feel like Both sides are now comfortable with each other. The T-Wolves with Finch, Finch with his roster. He's still below 500, but again, in Minnesota, as a head coach, you don't see that a lot into mid-January. So let's give some kudos to Chris Finch.
Yeah, no question. I happened to be at both venues that had basketball on Sunday. The Gophers were playing host to Iowa at Williams Arena, and they were getting blown out of the gym. They were down by 23 points in the second half before things started to turn a little bit for them. And they made a run. They got within 3 in the final minutes. But the keys to that turnaround, and then we can talk about what happened during the game prior to that and why they ended up losing the game, were head coach Ben Johnson. And as many coaches are reluctant to go to a zone defense, Ben Johnson decided nothing else is working right now. Let's go to a zone. They got more rebounds. They got more inside presence, and it helped them. And then the big kid from Glenwood, Minnesota, way up north of Alexandria, he came in, and Trey Thompson gave him some good minutes, 8 points off the bench, changed some shots, got some rebounds. I thought he was a big difference maker for him.
Well, it's certainly maybe some discoveries that Ben Johnson found, trying to navigate his way through really the 4th straight Big Ten loss now. So it's official. They're in a slump. They're in a rut. Right. The reality check is here. They had that 10-1 start out of the gate. They had a win at Michigan. And I still think good things have happened and good things will happen. But we are finding out just how rugged the Big Ten is, because Minnesota, upcoming schedule at Penn State versus Rutgers at the Barn. Then they host number 19 Ohio State. Then they're at Wisconsin. That's a top 15 team. Then they come back and host number 4 ranked Purdue. So they've got to get things turned around quickly. They badly need to win this game against Penn State on Wednesday night out there in Happy Valley, or they're really going to be looking at possibly a long losing streak.
Yeah, and it's tough in the Big Ten. I think that the biggest problem the Gophers have in Big Ten basketball is the physicality of it. And of course, they were missing Eric Curry against Iowa, and it really showed. They tried to mix and match some guys in there. They only had, I think, 7 scholarship players available to play in the basketball game against Iowa. They ended up losing by 10 points, but I thought that the physicality of Iowa was the difference in that basketball game. They just pounded it inside. Minnesota had no answers, but they've got some guys that can score, and they've got Jamison Battle, and they've got Peyton Willis. They got a couple of guys that can really play Big Ten basketball without question. But I think that in the end, their problem in this league is going to be the fact that they just don't have great physical presence.
And that's something that Ben Johnson and Dave Thorson, they will address moving forward.
No doubt.
This is a long-term project here. They're building a foundation. And so, but I am hopeful that they can get some wins here out of this rugged upcoming stretch, because, as you said, when they face big guys who are dominant on the block, like Kofi Coburn at Illinois, they get run over like a speed bump. But that's life in the Big Ten. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you.
No, and Ben Johnson has said it. We're playing in the toughest conference in college basketball, and I would tend to agree. From top to bottom, it's probably the best
Muscle
conference
up,
in college basketball.
Find a way to win, like you almost did last week at East Lansing against a very good Michigan State team. But again, no moral victories. The losing streak is here. Ben Johnson and that group have to figure out a way to, reverse the tide.
He was happy, Ben Johnson was afterwards, with the fact that his team didn't give up. He was disappointed that they didn't win the basketball game and they didn't finish. He says, we've got to find ways to finish. They just didn't do that. But I like what Ben's doing. I really do.
All right, very good. We've got a lot coming up. We're going to go on the ice to one of Minnesota's 10,000 frozen lakes.
We are.
Ice fishing chatter. And Larry Fitzgerald, Twin Cities broadcaster and columnist. Who should the Minnesota Vikings hire as their next head coach? I think he has an answer. This is 10K Takes, your Gopher Hoops ticket.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earrings. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision. It's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
Hello, I'm attorney Lee Hutton. From my time playing football for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers back in the 90s, to my current work in the courtroom with some of the most high-profile cases in the country, no matter the fight, I am there. I've represented and won cases for major corporations all the way to the everyday individual. From family law to entertainment law, contracts to trial litigation, I'm committed to my clients in presenting their story. Please contact me at lhutton@thehuttonfirm.com.
From the first time you pick up a tuned-up custom rod, you'll know you're holding something special. A rod not mass-produced, but built one at a time by the hands of gifted craftsmen. Rods like the Precision, ice fishing's most versatile multi-species rod, or the Precision Noodle with a tip so sensitive you'll never fish a spring bobber again. And the Commander, the rod that's never met a big fish it couldn't best. Tuned-up custom rods. Ice rods handcrafted for you and the way you fish.
10K takes, Wally and Eric, and we're going to continue talking some football, NFL football, of course. And we are joined now by Larry Fitzgerald, Twin Cities broadcaster, journalist, all-around good guy. Larry, were you as surprised or surprised at all to hear about all the miscommunication or lack of communication between former head coach Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman in the final 2 months of the Spielman-Zimmer era out in Eagan?
Well, I was aware that, both of them were sort of tied at the hip in terms of their contract extensions. And when you're the general manager, you better have a head football coach who's implementing your plan. And if you're Mike Zimmer, you're dependent on a general manager to make certain that you have players that can fuel what it is that you're best at. And I think if you look at some of the teams around the National Football League, you look at Kansas City, they got two guys that were drafted by the Vikings. Jerick McKinnon, I mean, he had over 100 and some yards last night and a touchdown. You look at the cornerback, Hughes, I mean, he was here, number one pick. And others, those were all drafted by, Rick Spielman. And for whatever reason, Zimmer, they didn't cut it in his system, and they wound up moving him. So I think the ownership did the right thing. Back-to-back losing seasons is enough. Spielman has been here long enough. He's been here since 2008. He's had 2 shots at championships, and it just didn't work out for him. I mean, he made an investment in a quarterback who fans were traumatized by because they think, wow, he's Tom Brady, he's Aaron Rodgers, he's the next it. Well, he delivers good numbers, but he doesn't deliver wins. We found that out. He's a 500 quarterback.
Larry, there are 8 teams in the NFL looking for head coaches. That's 1/4 of the league. If you were talking to Mark and Ziggy Wolf today, what would be your hot list? Who's on your short list of who they should talk to be the next head coach of the Minnesota Vikings?
Byron Leftwich should be in that interview. There's no question about that. He is ready. He is a terrific, talented mind. He's an offensive guy, and I think the Vikings need to go that route, particularly, they've got a quarterback that's going to be around here till 2026, and he has the ability to work with whoever he works with in terms of who his quarterback is and get the most out of him. So I would definitely start with him. I think he's ready to be a head football coach in the National Football League. If they want to go on the defensive side, they've had him here before. Hey, Leslie Frazier, man, there's nobody coaching defense better than that guy right now in the National Football League.
What about Eric Bieniemy?
I like Eric. I think he's ready. I think that he kind of reminds me, Wally, of you remember when Andy Reid was at Philadelphia and Brad Childress was his offensive coordinator?
Uh-oh.
He kind of gets lost in the sense that you don't know who really is who's the offensive coordinator. And I think that hurt Brad Childress. And that's one of the reasons why it took him so long to become a head football coach. He did a good job here in Minnesota, as we know. But the other part of it is Eric Bieniemy is sort of caught in that trap now because he's got a superstar quarterback. He's got a Hall of Fame coach, and he's not getting credit for anything that he does.
I'm going to throw 2 other names out at you, Larry. D'Amico Ryans, the defensive coordinator in San Francisco. Boy, that is a physical defense. They will punch you in the mouth. And then Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator in Buffalo, who on the flip side of Leslie.
Well, I think everybody that is in the National Football League are one of the best coaches in the world. There's no secret. But when you ask me who I think is ready, I told you. There's nobody better right now to be a head football coach in the National Football League than the gentleman in Tampa. I mean, he is absolutely an outstanding mindset. And if you look at some of the coaches at Los Angeles, San Francisco, even at Green Bay, these are offensive guys who have that reputation. And I think that's the way you got to go in the National Football League right now. And hopefully you can find a defensive coordinator who can mix and match and find a way to turn the Vikings into something they've never been. In the 40-plus years I've been covering them, they've never been a physical football team. And that's what you have to be in the National Football League, I think, to win it.
Before they can hire a head coach, or presumably before they do hire a head coach, they're going to get a general manager on board. Any thoughts about the direction you think they're going to go with the general manager?
I hope they do what they're supposed to do, because that's as great as the Wilfs have been since taking over as owners of this great historic franchise. They've gotten everything they wanted, everything they asked for. They've gotten that incredible Twin Cities orthopedic headquarters out there. You know, it's a remarkable facility. I think it's the best in the National Football League, although we haven't been able to get out there during this COVID period the last 2.5 years, really, and fans have been, penalized that. But you look at the development, you look at the Omni, you look at the hotels and stuff that they've got going out there. U.S. Bank Stadium, it's one of the best facilities in all of the National Football League. The Vikings ownership made 14% on their money this past season in terms of the growth of the franchise. And that's important. That's a big piece of this. But the other part of it is they're not delivering to the fans who have been suffering all these years, that want a championship and know that they just paid big money for seat licensing and the prices on tickets to be at U.S. Bank Stadium. And they got a football team that excites you, gets you to the end, and then gives you a heart attack.
Larry, we just have seconds left. You know Jerry Jones. Does Mike McCarthy survive that Dallas debacle yesterday down there in the Metroplex?
Well, they were not ready to play Sunday, Eric. They were 49ers were more physical. They ran the ball. Everybody knows what the formula is in the playoffs. You better run the ball, and you better stop the run. They didn't do either one. And then they got all those penalties. And, boy, I tell you, that fourth quarter drive was a nightmare. And so I hope he survives. But the biggest mistake I think Jerry Jones made was hiring a head football coach who can't beat the 49ers. Remember when he was coach of the Packers, even when he had Colin Kaepernick, he couldn't beat the 49ers.
All right, Larry. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again down the road, I'm sure.
Thanks, Larry. Happy
Thank you.
MLK Day.
All right. He is Larry Fitzgerald, Twin Cities broadcaster and columnist. Stay with us. We're going to hit the ice right after this timeout.
Hello, I'm attorney Lee Hutton. From my time playing football for the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers back in the 90s, to my current work in the courtroom with some of the most high-profile cases in the country, no matter the fight, I am there. I've represented and won cases for major corporations all the way to the everyday individual. From family law to entertainment law, contracts to trial litigation, I'm committed to my clients in presenting their story. Please contact me at lhutton@thehuttonfirm.com.
From the first time you pick up a tuned-up custom rod, you'll know you're holding something special. A rod not mass-produced, but built one at a time by the hands of gifted craftsmen. Rods like the Precision, ice fishing's most versatile multi-species rod, or the Precision Noodle with a tip so sensitive you'll never fish a spring bobber again. And the Commander, the rod that's never met a big fish it couldn't best. Tuned-up custom rods. Ice rods handcrafted for you and the way you fish.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect. your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 Takes. Wally Langfellow and Eric Nelson with you. And now we're going to talk about one of the 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. The weather outside has been somewhat frightful lately, but not if you're an ice fisherman. And we are joined now by Scott Mackner, who is a fishing guide up in the Alexandria area, Detroit Lakes area. Scott, you're currently out on Rock Lake. I understand that that's just south or northeast of the Detroit Lakes. First and foremost, are you catching anything?
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm getting some sunfish, a few crappies, and it's just gorgeous outside.
Yeah, you look like you're enjoying it, Scott. What's the ice thickness right now up there in northwestern Minnesota?
This lake here has about 14 inches on it. I'm seeing anywhere from as little as 9, in some of the deeper lakes, up to like that 18-inch range.
What are you using? You said you're basically fishing for panfish right now. What are you using? What do you got on the end of that line?
So the fish have been a little finicky on this lake, so I have a very small 3 millimeter jig, tip of the waxworm. When they get a little picky, I'll downsize. There we go. That guy you could just barely see him come up and bite the tip of that rod. Oh, there's a pumpkin seed. Nice, beautiful colors on that fish.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah.
So how long you got to be out there to start catching fish? It looks like you've been there for a little while anyway.
Yeah, it kind of depends. So the spot that I'm fishing right now, I've actually never fished before on this lake. I kind of looked at the lake and I found a few points of interest, and I went and I just started drilling a bunch of holes across this area. It probably took me, I would say, 15 to 20 holes before I started finding some fish. So it was, at least an hour or so of drilling and looking till I found some.
And now's your chance, Scott, to give our good friend Adam Audet a plug with the tuned-up custom rods. I know that's what you're using out there on the lake today, the frozen lake.
Absolutely. I'm using this is a 36-inch tuned-up custom rods, precision noodle. They come in black, or you can see, probably see it against my person here is white. It's just a different variation of the rod, but it's probably my favorite panfish rod. Especially fishing small jigs like this, because it's ultralight action, and it's got a really high visibility green tip there. So when I'm sitting here jigging and these fish are coming up and I'm just staring at the tip of that rod, even the slightest bite, you can see that rod tip dip where you set the hook.
I know in the summer when you're out, it's usually early morning or early evening where you're catching fish. Is it the same type of approach when you're ice fishing?
If certain lakes, you can find fish active all day. Like this lake here, you can find them. As long as you can find them and stay on top of them, they'll be active all day long. Other lakes that are ultra clear seem to be more of a morning or an evening bite.
Scott, thanks for joining us. And I love the fact you're not in one of those cushy ice houses. You're out there in the elements.
No, I don't, I have one, but I tell you what, unless it's at least 0 or worse, even then, I just don't like fishing in them. I like to be mobile. I have my old Artie Cat with me. I'll hop on here and drill a bunch of holes, and if I don't see nothing, it's easy to just throw everything in my sled and pack up and be gone in just a few minutes.
Well, Scott, we appreciate it. Good luck today out on the lake, and we will talk to you again here in a couple of weeks.
All right. Thank you guys very much for coming out and visiting with me.
All right.
See you, Scott.
All right. He is Scott Mackner, fishing guide up in the Detroit Lakes area, out on Rock Lake, where we caught him today. Stay with us. More here on 10,000 Takes, not 10,000 Lakes. Right after this. Stay with us.
From the first time you pick up a tuned-up custom rod, you'll know you're holding something special. A rod not mass-produced, but built one at a time by the hands of gifted craftsmen. Rods like the Precision, ice fishing's most versatile multi-species rod, or the Precision Noodle with a tip so sensitive you'll never fish a spring bobber again. And the Commander, the rod that's never met a big fish it couldn't best. Tuned up custom rods. Ice rods handcrafted for you and the way you fish.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
"10K Takes," the television edition. Wally and Eric with you. Happy MLK Day. And of course, in our final segment, it is time for Takes of the Day. Mood meter for Wally. Is he a grumpy guardian, giddy guardian, angry American, happy camper? What's it going to be?
Well, as you know, I'm a huge fan of Wild Card Weekend. Super Wild Card Weekend now. In other words, they threw in a couple of extra teams for us now. This is the last 2 years they have done this. And I call it Stupid Wild Card Weekend.
Wow.
Too many teams in here. Too many teams that don't belong in the postseason. If you're upset that the Vikings didn't make the postseason, you might want to backtrack on that. They did not belong. Philadelphia didn't belong. They got crushed by Tampa. The Steelers got battered by the Chiefs. And then the Bills and New England. That might have been the worst of them all. These games are just a waste of everybody's time. I know the NFL is cashing checks. That's what it's all about. Just like the 17-game season, that's what it's all about. Yeah, you had some drama in the Dallas-San Francisco game. And yeah, I know you're a big Bengals guy, and you're happy to see them and the Raiders go at it, and the Bengals come out on top. But I got to tell you, it was already too much as far as I'm concerned with 6 teams in each conference, now 7 teams. Boo on the stupid Super Wild Card Weekend. It is stupid Wild Card Weekend. Wow. Don't waste your time. Go right to the divisional playoffs in my mind.
All right, well, the mood meter says grumpy guardian. No doubt about it. Angry American, too. We'll throw in a double label this week.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to counterpunch with you. I'm going to say that, yes, you're right. There were some games that were blowouts, no question about it. But I think there still was good theater. Buffalo battering New England when it was 5 degrees on a frigid night in Orchard Park. If you don't like the Patriots, if you're anti-Bill Belichick, you had to be smiling. He had to stand there and watch that thing with his gaiter over his face and his hoodie over his head. Who didn't like that if you don't like New England? And you brought up Cincinnati knocking off Las Vegas. Bengal fans can now finally send a text saying their team has won a playoff game because it had been 31 years since they won in the postseason, and that was 91. 92 was the invention of the text message.
Oh, boy.
And finally, that NFL soap opera titled Dallas. JR, played by Jerry Jones, he's the villain. He's out. Mike McCarthy is Cliff Barnes. He just can't get it right. He's always losing in the big moment. And the Cowboys' last Super Bowl was Super Bowl 30 out there in Tempe, Arizona at Arizona State University. So, you know what? If you don't like the Patriots and you don't like America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, it was a good weekend. Go San Francisco.
I'm so happy that you had so much fun watching the 2 games that actually mattered and the 3 that were just terrible. Terrible football. I can do without it. Give me the divisional playoffs.
All right, let's add more playoff teams, which they might do. You watch. All right, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to our great crew here at 10K Takes Television, also to Rocky and to Scott on the ice, to Larry Fitzgerald. For Wally, I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your Super Wild Card Weekend ticket.